What's up, everybody? It's Goddess Z, and I'm here with another podcast episode on holistic and spiritual AF. I hope everybody's been taking care of themselves, mind, body, and spirit, because if either one of those things are out of balance, then we are out of balance. All right. And if you are tuning into this podcast for the first time, you are definitely in the right place if you're into topics such as how to connect with your ancestors, accessing your divine feminine codes, metaphysics, esoteric wisdom. Myself and my guests, we go in on those topics every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this podcast airs on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, pretty much anywhere that podcasts are syndicated. So definitely look us up at Holistic and Spiritual AF. All right. um, and if you're coming back, welcome back, fam. I appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure to check out the description so you get access to what's going on in the holistic and spiritual AF community, as well as what's going on in my guest life. Okay, so today I'm having a guest. This is episode 75. Can you believe it? The title is Beyond Awakening, Restoring the Original Divine Blueprint with Yeshua. Okay, now in this episode, I'm sitting down with Yeshua Emmanuel. He's an author, a cosmic spiritual architect, metaphysical research, and the founder of the Soul Path Collective. Yeshua's work focuses on helping people reconnect with their original divine nature. Through a blend of ancient wisdom, consciousness studies, and metaphysical practices, he teaches how to activate dormant potential within the body and mind and how to embody a higher level of awareness and consciousness. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to be talking about what spiritual DNA activation really means, the idea of a divine human blueprint, Christ consciousness and embodiment, multidimensional healing, expanding beyond traditional awakening models, and what it means to to consciously evolve. Okay, so if you've ever felt like your spiritual journey goes deeper than mindset shifts, and manifestation techniques, then this episode invites you into a broader conversation about human potential and remembrance. Okay, so as you can see, this ain't no weak episode. All right, so make sure you stick around all the way to the end. I will say that this is one of those deeper episodes that may require some integration afterwards. So just be gentle with yourself, and listen to the thing into its entirety if you can. If you can't, make sure you come back because, like I said, there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge in this episode, and it's deep, deep stuff. All right. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right. So thank you so much, Yeshua, for agreeing to join me on this podcast episode. I know my audience is going to enjoy this from the tidbit that I heard right before we got started. And so you're into some pretty deep topics, one of which I'm definitely going to like pick your brain on because I think it was the first time I heard of the kelotonic sciences. I had to research that, so I can't wait to talk to you about that. CDT plate, origins of the universe, DNA activation, multidimensional healing, and you're
Mhm.
doing a lot of really amazing stuff, like as far as sharing your knowledge on TikTok and YouTube, and you're really well versed in a lot of different things. So I'm just curious, and my audience I know is too. Like, how did this get started for you? Like, how did you get from here, from there to here?
Oh yeah, it's a pretty wild story. Um, I mean, he who has forgiven much can also love much. My journey really got started like in the church because I grew up in Atlanta, right? So I was going to church every Sunday, Southern Baptist, really, really Christian, kind of doomstone kind of type of religious structure, but I remember my whole life is like, no matter how many times I went and like tried to be a good Christian, because this was really like a battle, like my battle with God, right? Because the way it's always been shared to me is like, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, then you're gonna just die and burn. And I'm like, well, how can that be love? Because in order for there to be love, there must be a choice, right? And so for a long time, I kind of wrestled with like First Testament Bible and Second Testament Bible because these things were constantly in contradiction with one another for a lot of my life. And I remember after my last last relationship that was not like the healthiest, I was not in the good mindset or space at that time. I actually sat down and began reading the Bible in hopes that it would bring me some kind of like, comfort or whatever. And it just kind of left me with more questions. When I was in university, I went to the University of San Diego. I took several courses that were mandated by the system because if you didn't take 3 semesters of a theology, then you weren't allowed to graduate. So I chose Catholicism, Christianity, and its practices, and the Jesus who never was. That was the title of the course. I was like, oh, this should be really, really interesting. And the first thing my professor says on the first day of class, he says, what I'm going to say is going to shake a lot of you up. I have been studying the life of Christ for a long time now. And, I know some of you are deeply religious, and that's fine. Like, you have your belief. But Jesus never said anything about saving you from sin or dying from you. He made no mention of that at all. And I was like, whoa. Like, you start the class, you start the class with that. And mind you, this is a Catholic school, right? So people are coming into this class with like deeply religious backgrounds and belief systems. And then that's just kind of how like he opened it up. So during my time in university, I spent a lot of time learning about Yeshua, right? His real name, not Jesus, as the church would later rename him hundreds of years after his death for reasons that we can get into a little bit later on. Um, and that was kind of like where it all started, I think, was in that university room inside the classroom. So fast forward about maybe 4.5, 5 years. I think I was 19 at that time. Fast forward 5 years, I just got out of a really, really toxic relationship. I'm 25 years old. I'm living in LA, and I'm at my friend's 30th birthday party. And we went to this rave in downtown LA. Now, keep in mind, at this point in life, I wasn't like hardcore atheist because I had seen things I had just seen things that I just couldn't explain for my whole life, people that weren't human, whether it be I was awake or asleep. But the deeper down this quote unquote spiritual journey I got, the more I was like, okay, I can't be an atheist because I know there's something out there, but I don't know how to put it into words. And so at this point, at like 25, I'm kind of agnostic, right? Like, I don't really know what to believe. I know something is there, but I know that I'm not going to adapt in an Abrahamic or Judaic framework because that, even before my discovery of like keletonic science or anything to do with activation, that for me in my heart and my mind always felt distorted. It always felt like that. I didn't know why, but it just didn't resonate here or here on like a higher level. So I'm at this rave, my friend's 30th birthday party. And, I'm not someone who really partook in a lot of like party drugs because my mom always told me when I was little, like, you're a very spiritually sensitive kid, because when you open yourself up, right, uh, things can come in and things
Oh,
can
yeah.
attach to you, right? So at this time, I was like, okay. I mean, I don't really mind. I took some Molly, maybe smoked like a little bit of weed, and had a little bit of ketamine. I was just feeling, happy and uppity, right? Like, it's a room full of white people. Everyone's having a good time. My friend just turned 30. And I remember so vividly in this room. Keep in mind, it's like pitch black with like a couple of lights going off and then just some music. I remember seeing these like colorful shields begin to take form and place outside of people's like their heads and like their bodies and their shapes. And I'm seeing like the colors of their light bodies begin to come online. Like, keep in mind, I have no idea what I'm seeing. I'm just like, am I just seeing their energies? I'm like, okay, like whatever. And the as the night continues to progress, every time I close my eyes, I'm just seeing all of these different colors, cities, bird-like humanoids, and like cat-like people talking to me. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I sit down, my friend's like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, like I'm fine. I'm just all of a sudden there's this giant bird-like being that like is just kind of right in front of me and just talks to me so clearly. It was like a radio transmission where I was able to like that was my first time where I thought, okay, I'm like hearing God. Like this is I've never had a transmission come through this clearly before. And he was talking to me about how like I'm a frequency being, how like my soul is like hundreds of millions of years old. I'm here on a mission. You're an artist. You're here to help, fix the grids of Mother Earth. And I'm thinking like this giant bird-like humanoid, like it's got the body of a man, about 10 feet tall, but it's like golden feathers and eyes that just pierce right into your soul. But it's like this loving fatherly like figure. This wasn't I could just tell that this is not something that is out of alignment, right? Because
Right.
it felt like a warm embrace. It felt like my family was talking to me. And he was lecturing me on how different music is able to speak to different vibrations within the human chakra, and the reason why, like, Prince and Michael and Whitney and a couple of other people got so popular around the world because they were what's considered in the universe as like a level one artist, meaning that their music can speak to the highest chakra in the human template, and it completely their their light bodies were able to open up and download those frequencies. So half the night, this Birdman is just talking to me, and after it's all over, I kind of had a better understanding, okay, like of like what my soul's mission is, but I didn't know what I had just seen. Keep in mind, I didn't know about the Karyans, I didn't know about the Lyrans, I didn't know about any of these other different types of ET beings or like who they, where they were. I had a couple of friends who were like kind of into the UFO space, but they're more into kind of like the conspiracy side behind it, like the reptilians and the aliens, the government's line, not the spiritual side of deconstructing what and who archangels actually are, and what's kind of like behind that. And so many years later, I discover a man named Dr. Dreher, and he teaches this same information as well. And I began following a guy named Anuhazi on YouTube, and he's talking about like the Lyrans, like your soul family, like your star family. And I'm beginning to just kind of like consume more content, slowly but surely, because had I never experienced any of this, I would have thought, well, man, they're just like crazy. But like you're talking about bird-like beings and these quote unquote the architects of reality, right? Like these beings who their like whole job and like function of source is to create and seed life across the universe, across different dimensions. And I was like, holy crap! So all that Marvel stuff is kind of true and like real. Like there's like levels and like levels and levels to it.
And
And
layers and layers.
Mhm. And for me, that was kind of like just my introduction into this space because I had that experience and I was sitting on that and holding that for years. And I never met anyone who could speak exactly to like what I saw, because I was like, what, like I thought at that time, well, maybe this is God. Turned out it wasn't God. Turned out it's a messenger from my oversoul, because I didn't realize like, human beings, you have like an earth identity, you have a soul, you have an oversoul, and then you have an avatar, and then you have a rishi self, and the higher you go up with these levels of consciousness and frequencies, you get to the purest version of yourself, which is your inner avatar. That's your Christos. And people like Yeshua, people like Merlin, who was also a real person, a 12th level avatar, these were the things that they were teaching to people. That's why it's called Christ, Christed, the anointed one. Um, and it's like the deeper I got into it, the more I just began to, like, the first time I actually began to cultivate a real relationship with with God source. And it's like the most beautiful love story of all time. And it's
It
like
is.
every time, like every prayer, every meditation, it's like you just fall deeper and deeper in love with source. And it's like it just feels like coming home every time, you know? So
I
but
love
then
it. That was beautiful. That was really, really, I mean, that's why I always ask that question because
mm,
everybody's experience is so different. It's something, that got us to where we are. But yours was definitely intense. Like you got thrown into the deep end right away, like, but you weren't afraid of it, like so, and you were young, and that was your first, experience with experimentation, and you just
yeah.
opening up portals. So I love it. But I mean, the whole journey to me, it was amazing, especially how you ended it. It just, because a lot of times people think that we on this side of spirituality and cosmic lineage and stuff like that don't connect with source or God energy. Like we're just disconnected from that. And like you just described, it couldn't be any further from the truth. It's this love affair. It's this coming from being an unbeliever, not sure, agnostic, to having a spiritual relationship with source energy and being expressant of that divine energy. So I love that. I love the whole journey, how you how you like ended it with that. That was perfect. Thank you so much for that.
It's my
Yeah,
pleasure.
so you've been on the path and you've been experiencing some amazing things, I'm sure. So give us a breakdown of what kelotonic, I hope I'm saying it right, kelotonic sciences is like, and what that means for you.
So God, it's like having to put all the knowledge of the
I
universe into
know.
like
To a to a bite
um,
size just digestible piece.
yeah, no. Keletonic science is basically a metaphysical physics model. So before you get atoms, you have templates, and before you get biology, you have frequency architecture. And what we call like spiritual evolution is really biological template restoration that restores the original human template, right? So it's like the way that it presents itself is the science of all creation, right? It describes reality as built from consciousness, energy, geometry, and where matter is organized by living templates through what are called morphogenetic fields rather than being purely random physical types of interactions. So you have what's called like a morphogenetic field. You have what's called a Cathar grid, which is like a foundational template map for the human, uh, for the light body, for the energy body, and dimensional anatomy. And then you have what's called a Mahar current. That's kind of it's like a high frequency life current that's like used for sealing, healing, and activation. And then you've got your 12 stranded DNA. Um, and that takes me down a whole different types of rabbit hole. But that's like basically kind of like the Spark Notes version of what keletonic science is. And it's like the type of knowledge that everyone's been waiting lifetimes to rediscover, right? Because your soul's not learning it for the first time, it's remembering. And I always try
Mhm.
to emphasize this to people. It's like the original fall was a biological downgrade of frequency, being having different parts, the upper strands of your DNA that were cut off and manipulated by off world different types of entities and groups who just kind of saw human beings as a slave race
Right.
and people to harvest energetically.
Yeah. And thank you for breaking that down. You said something earlier too about that we have the soul, but we also have an oversoul. Like I've never heard that, but it makes sense based on what I'm experiencing in my own ascension process. So basically, my ancestors, um, they have me meditating. I was like, meditation? Come on, that's like so beginner. But it's actually been like really taking me on some amazing experiences, and it's a lot about what you said, like what you were talking about, having this soul here for the new earth to usher in the new earth. But I'm
Mhm.
still, I'm still growing into that. So I know it's not an accident that you're here today because they picked the guest. So I was like, okay, is this what y'all were telling me? So that's perfect. you know um so good. So like, how does this differ from quantum physics?
Quantum physics only goes down to the atomic level because that
Okay.
level of physics, you're only looking at reality through a third 3D,
Yes.
right? Um, it's a lower level of matter, it's a lower level of consciousness. So when you're only looking at all of reality and all of not just human creation, but just the whole world, the whole universe, you're only seeing a small portion of what's there, right? The human eye can only see between infrared light and ultraviolet light. There's so much other light that's bouncing around all around you that people do not have the higher perception to even perceive, right? So kilotonic science is dates back to what's called first creation physics. That's billions of years old,
Hmm.
which is science and technology that various groups of ETs, most notoriously the Lyrans and the Anuhazi feline beings, use to see life on Earth and all across the universe, right? Everything was set up to flow and to stay in direct unity with source consciousness field. So
Yeah.
everyone gets a 12 strand DNA template, right? So life is eternal. So modern physics is slowly it's still catching up because it's just rediscovering what we already knew for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Because knowledge was buried, knowledge was suppressed. People who knew too much were hunted down and executed, all throughout history. Whether it be Yeshua, whether it be Merlin, in the UK, like that, those legends all come from the same place. People who came here to teach the same things, because it's such a threat to the people who kind of like want to keep the system as is, right? They want fear, right? And that's what they want to keep the grid charged with that. So, did I answer your question properly? Because it's, it's like, yeah, like that's like the main difference between like regular physics and like kilotonic
Yeah.
processes, yeah. And the government
That
knows
makes
about stuff too.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I'm not necessarily into quantum physics myself. Like I get all my information from my DNA. Like you said, like it's already encoded in there. So there's the
Encoded.
remembrance, the like everything that you're saying, it makes total sense to me. I think my audience is you're giving it in a way that's easy to understand. So I appreciate that as
I
well.
try to. I really, really try to because it gets really there's a YouTuber named Anu Hazi Akwayan, and he does a really great job as well. And it's like, how do you compress, like how do you microwave secrets of the universe?
Right.
To like especially to the average person. So that's why when I make content, I try to make it for those people who have already awakened or beginning to awake, because to the average person it's like they might not have the ability to perceive or to handle or to hold this information, right? And that's fine because their soul contract, because before you incarnate, you sign a contract and you agree to forget in order to remember. And a part of what's in your contract is, well, maybe you were meant to find this knowledge at this point, like in your life, but for that person, they were meant to just completely embody this field, right? The
Mm.
3D density. So it doesn't maybe ring any bells, but Source gives everybody a choice. And that's the most beautiful thing about it. It's like you truly have to choose God every single day,
Yep.
you
That's in
know,
every single lifetime.
a lifetime, right? Right. Well,
Every
we will
single
talk about
lifetime.
reincarnation as well if you want to. That's another.
Yeah, yeah, because I was, we can go into it because we were going to talk about being multidimensional beings. So let's talk about reincarnation. Let's get into it.
Yeah, reincarnation was not a part of the original source and the intention of God.
Mm.
That was a
But now,
hijack.
well, then you got to follow up now. Come on, explain.
Yeah, no. So when consciousness descends in frequency, right, going back to the inner avatar, if it wants to descend in frequency and vibration, it has to lower itself. So that's where we get into the oversouls, DNA strands 7, 8, and 9. From the oversoul, it projects into dimensions 4, 5, and 6, which are souls and lifetimes. So it's like you have other versions of yourself
Mhm.
that exist at different points in space and time, because your oversoul has to project, but it can't do so at once because these levels of reality aren't meant to hold that much light. So it has to split itself. And a part of that split, you get the masculine and the feminine, right? The man and the woman. Because there's a certain level and frequency and consciousness where there is no gender, because the polarities are unified as one androgynous person or being, which also that that freaks a lot of people out, because we build these identities, right, based on so much physical 3D biology, that the fact that like there might be a version of you out there that's like a man or like a woman, for some people they're just like, just like, whoa. But it makes sense when you think about it, because source consciousness just wants to experience, it wants to learn, it wants to grow. So getting into reincarnation, the original celestial human beings who walk this planet millions and millions and millions of years ago had the ability to phase in and out of reality. They had the ability to appear and reappear at any point in space and time, because those 12 strands were completely online. These weren't the human beings that we are now, because
Right.
our DNA is messed with so much. But that's that's what it was all about. Like you had eternal life, right? You didn't sin or anything. Like eternal life was yours. It wasn't until different factions, such as like the Dracos, the Jehovah and Anunnaki, in different groups began to experiment, and they cut themselves off from source. So they didn't have the full 12 strands, right? Because that means that you have to consume energy to create energy, because you cut yourself off from the source of all energy. So you have to build an entirely different system because you cut it off. And that's where they messed up, which led to wars all across the universe and all across the galaxies for the right to have this template inside of your DNA. The original war of humanity was not about sin against God. It was the right to who would have access to the 12 strands of DNA. And the Anunnaki would come to Earth masquerading as gods, right? And we can
Right.
see, we can see this across Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Mayan ruins. Everyone's like praying to the same people who at that time they thought they were gods, because it's like you have to think about it like this. If you come across species or a group of people who aren't as technologically advanced and they have no memory of their other lifetimes, it's just an opportunity for you to manipulate, which is what they did and what's been going on for the past tens of thousands of years, really post Atlantean flood. So you weren't meant to continue this cycle of death and coming back, death coming back. You're meant to merge with your oversoul and back into your avatar, simply for the purpose of experiencing where these fallen Anunnaki, or as the Bible calls them, fallen
Fallen
angels,
angels. Yep.
they have first creation knowledge and they have an understanding of physics. So what they were able to do, and really I would say the greatest, for me personally, the greatest spiritual hijacking took place in Egypt, right? This is when we see the first indoctrination of these hyper patriarchal systems that destroyed the feminine template, right? This is when shame and servitude really began to be introduced into humanity. And this is when the false light hijacking, in my opinion, really began. Is this idea that, oh, you're gonna reincarnate and in your next life you're gonna have X, Y, and Z. But the soul wasn't meant to continue looping. It's a false light system because when you quote unquote die, or when the soul leaves the body, it goes through this soul review where this AI fake ass like a guru almost is like, oh, you want to have a look at your life and see where you messed up, and like, would you like to do it again? Because you have to consent, right? If you don't learn and you don't take any steps to activate and list in this lifetime, you can be deceived. So it's not like the hijacking is forceful. You consent to it, but they play on the manipulation. Hollywood puts all of the answers right in front of people, like the Men in Black, but like all that stuff is like real, you know what I mean? Like they tell you, and the crazy part about it is that's how they get you to consent. They put the answers right in front of your face. It's just people write it off as fiction,
Right.
right? Because we're in the war for the mind, the war for the soul.
Literally.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you for the breakdown of that. I mean, I see it as that as well. The soul, that's the whole point, is for us to not come back. You know what I'm saying? That's how I've always seen it, is that we are supposed to be elevating and transforming and ascending to a place of a higher ascended. Like my
right.
ancestors, I've got my bloodline, I've got my cosmic lineage, and then I have high ascended ancestors. They don't come back to earth. They are where they are. So I've always seen it that way, but I never thought about it as a hijacking as to why, but it makes sense though, like you described it. If we have no memory, then we think, oh, this is the way it has to be. You know, this is
Exactly.
I messed this up this lifetime, so let me get it right the next time. So, okay, interesting. But of course, you know me, I'm going to research that too. Like I take what I need out, but I got to research it. So, where do you research this? Is this like from your studies or is this from the knowledge inside of your DNA?
This is from both,
Both.
actually. You, when you reach a certain point in activation, you can. Um, the way to think about it is you're like a radio, right? And your oversoul and your avatar are always trying to talk to you. They're always there. But because of the frequency that we currently occupy and the grids, the satellite, like there's all of these layers that are all around Earth, and that's called the phantom matrix. The signal gets scrambled. So it's like muffly, right? And when you reestablish this signal through DNA activation, over time, that signal is going to begin to clear up. And when it clears up, you're like, holy shit. I mean, you're like, you begin to go to places in your heart and your mind that you've only kind of seen in movies, you know? I remember, what was it? It was 2021, and it was the most vivid dream I ever had where I went back to Lyra, which is a star system, super high frequency, and I was flying around and I had landed on this planet and I was like talking to like my soul family, and there were different cat-like beings like you had like the Anuhazi, you had the Avians, you had the Karyans, and everyone was just kind of talking, and it was just so much love. Like I never felt that much love and that setting before, and everything was so vibrant. Like I just remember the color, like just colors I had never seen on Earth, and it was just so vibrant. I was like, man, I want to stay here. And they're like, nah, like
Yeah.
we'll be here when you get back, but you gotta, like you gotta do your thing on Earth. Um, and so a lot of this knowledge comes from that, but it also comes directly from the CDT plates as well. And what the CDT plates are is like it's like common source codex. Um, they're like holographic disc that you can only really begin to access through um, the astral level of mind, right? These are 12 physical disc like records that contain holographic memory from advanced spiritual science teachings covering, physics, the multi dimensional anatomy, and then DNA template science, essential mechanics. So it's like a library, and it's not written like a book. It's just stored as a holographic standing wave of information. So it's like an ancient hard drive, but it's encoded through electromagnetic scalar patterning rather than text. Because the text can be burned, they can be manipulated, they can be destroyed. But these is like, no, 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 no. We're gonna put this on a higher level of mind. So you need to be like a little bit more activated in order just to read it. And that's not to keep people from self actualization, but it's also to keep the information safe and secured, because it's like this information belongs to everybody.
Right. That's how we got to this place in the first place, is the wrong people getting the information. I say that all the time. I'm like, oh, our ancestors were brilliant. This is the one thing they can't steal. This is how you don't steal it, but you got to put some work into it, depending on where you are in your journey, to get to it. And everything you're describing is the meditation. I mean, that's what it was going to take for me. And I'm thinking meditation, but that's literally what's happening. They're like, clear this channel up, calm that nervous system down. We need you to hear. We need you to hear. And so that's what's happening is I'm able to hear. My frequency has shifted tremendously. The colors, like you were talking about, I had an experience too where I went to my soul family. Same thing you described. I did not want to come back to Earth. I was like, it's like that video, Earth is ghetto. I didn't want to be here. I was like, I want to stay here. so
Yeah.
I totally feel you. They said the same thing. It was like, no, not your time yet. You got stuff to do down there. And so yeah, so I get what you're saying, but it does require activating. And I would have thought that with my experience, but I had to do a lot of healing too. I would have thought that I was activated enough that you could just give me this, But
Right.
no, it's like really, it's like just now they're like, now you're at a place where you've removed so much of the healing, the trauma, the pain. Now you can actually be a
Mhm.
pure vessel for something like this. So I love that. So you talked about activating these things. So how is it that you integrate this into your life? Like, what are your practices and your rituals and things that you do to keep your receiver, clear?
Yeah. So everything I learned from Sam Lee and Dr. Jarrell, right? He's
Okay.
like kind of like the OG guy who rediscovered the information and brought it back for modern people to learn. Because it's like you can't. It's very very hard to just kind of like microwave this information and put it in a course. Like it is a daily dedication, um, and the more you do it, the more activated you become. It's like everything becomes clear. Like if you look at life through like a looking glass, the glass is super super clear. There's no fog, there's no confusion, because the devil lives in confusion, right?
Hmm.
Anytime it's like you don't know, like I don't know, like that's what the devil does his best work, quote unquote. So for me, I start every day with breath work. I start every day with breath work. I don't go through the techniques themselves to do the encryption, to speak in Anuhazi, the first light language spoken in the universe. I don't do that first because I found that when I did that, my nervous system wasn't able to hold that much light. Sorry, there's a ant on my wall. By the way, ants come from a group of Anunnaki beings called the
Really
insectoids, who are giant, big ass humanoid ant. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every
interesting.
species on Earth was seeded from different groups of extraterrestrials, and there's
I'm
much
dying to know about roaches because those things are like
to
like not that I have any. Let me just get that straight. I don't have any in here, but to me they're not. I've always said they are not from here.
There's some tough cookies though. No, they're I respect them. I like But I respect their hustle. You know, I'm like, you've been here a hot minute and you haven't changed.
Right. They like yeah, they different. But the ants, I would have never known that.
Yeah, ants are very, very, very intelligent beings. You have to respect them. You don't like them all the time, but like I saw some lifting up chips, like a whole chip, and it was like four of them, and I was like, man, if only we could get our shit together. Like
That's what I
y'all
was
got y'all.
saying. Their unity is like
Yeah,
unmatched.
in consciousness. And it's the same thing with beings as well. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, But that's just my daily practice. I start with a series of different techniques that I use to go into like my higher mind, my astral mind. I do a lot of breath work, who I learned from Juan Pablo Barahona. I gotta give a shout out to all my teachers and the people who taught me because
Absolutely.
I discovered the information at a time when I deeply needed it. So it's like if ever I get the chance to shout them out and be like, yo, like this is the person who taught me, who helped me come home and hear. Um, Got to give a shout out to him. But I do that like I try to do that at least 5 to 6 days a week, and then I do like a cold plunge in the pool because it just turns everything on, and once everything is on, my body and my whole system is able to just hold more light because when you're calling in your oversoul, you're calling in your avatar, you're calling in 12th dimensional frequencies into re-encrypting your DNA. It can be very intense because your body is trying to hold so much light, and our bodies aren't uh, pure light at this form, right? We don't have these aren't the plasma bodies. So we can only hold and call in so much light, and we have to do it so much in order to be able to hold the frequency, right? Because this level of reality is so distorted, right?
Right.
Because there's just so much misalignment. But I typically try and do it first thing in the morning and then before bed. Like the best is doing it with my girlfriend now that I have someone to do it with. And
Right.
if you do it with a partner, then you're able to amplify the field even more because if they're activated and you're activated, the field just kind of like magnetizes, right? Um,
Right.
so every day, and then also it just puts you in a totally different mood every day. And the more activated you become, you can't deactivate yourself. Once you establish that direct link to source, there's no going back, right? Like you're not going to look at reality the same. It's kind of like in the Matrix. It's like you can't, like once you've seen those fields and once you know what's
Right.
going on, you're like, you can't, you know, like there's no going backwards. It's like that veil has lifted. And when it's lifted, it's up, my guy.
I love it. I love it. So, like, how would you? like, what about a person? Now, I think I'm answering my own question, but I need to do this for the sake of the podcast. Like,
Mhm.
how would you describe to someone who has to be all up in the matrix? Like, most people got to get up, they got to go to work, they
Mhm.
got to, they got young children, they got all these different mini distractions all over the place, because that's the matrix. Like, so like, how could a person begin to activate themselves? I know you have the Soul Path Collective, so you probably talk a lot about this there as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
tell us about that and also how a person could actually navigate the matrix and still start activating their DNA.
Yeah. So if you're the first person I think about is like my sister, because she's working in finance in New York, and she's at like the heart of the distortion, right?
Mhm.
And it really just starts by every day re-encrypting your DNA every morning and every night. You need to re-establish that coherent field, right? You need to activate your Maharic shield. And when you do this, those 5G toxic frequencies that are constantly trying to, you know, control your thoughts and manipulate your thoughts, it's like you're not going to be fuck withable anymore. Like nothing is going to be able to touch you. I would say join my course or find some course that you like. We teach this stuff, and I'm going to hold your hand through every step of the way. It can be kind of jarring, but once that veil is lifted and that light is coming through, you're going to be walking and operating on a higher level of reality. You're going to begin to shift your timeline
Mhm.
into a much higher timeline. So if you're in the thick of it now and you can't see an end, just know that that's a part of the gimmick, right? That's a part of what's called the Maya. That's a part of the illusion. Don't fall
Mhm.
for it. You are who you've been looking for, right? You are your ancestors' wildest dreams come true. Don't take that for granted. Don't take this life for granted, right? There's a timeline split happening right now. Um, one's going towards down a path of, AI, war, and
Mhm.
destruction, and the other one's kind of still AI based, but you want to just realign with your avatar because they're both illusions. You want you don't want to come back. Some people do. Some people want to come back and they want to be someone important here.
It's
Like if you
ghetto here.
yeah, if you watch The Matrix, the first one, and that scene where Cypher is talking to Mr. Smith and he's telling him, okay, so like in your next life, like what do you want to be? Like he's like, I want to be someone wealthy, someone tall, someone important. They're like they're telling you right there in that scene.
Mhm.
So if you're in the thick of it now, just make that commitment and understand that eternal life wisdom and eternal life isn't um, bought; it's earned, right? And you want to get on your highest timeline possible because there is a soul family waiting for you. There is like an oversoul that's waiting for you to come home. And there's so much love there beyond your wildest like dreams. If something is draining you, slowly begin to take measures to just cut those things out.
Yeah.
Offer yourself just like some space. You have to create space. Doesn't matter if it's with your parents, your sibling, or your partner. You need space to allow yourself to just continue to reconnect every day. It's a daily practice. It's work, it's soul work, but it's the most important work that you will do in your lifetime.
Absolutely. And that's another podcast guest that said, what do you do? What, guys? The work. There's no cheat codes like to get
No,
to, but what you just described, I mean, you described a lot, actually. I liked how you talk about like book ending the day, starting the day with the practice, ending the day with it, and beginning to just elevate your frequency and your receiver to a certain level. And then, of course, you teach this. You have a class, you have YouTube, TikTok. You're doing a lot of things over there. Were
coming
you
out
a book coming out? Awesome. When is it coming?
So the book is I'm aiming for a release date at the end of February.
Oh
It's
wow, that's
called
around the corner.
yeah. I've been working on it since last spring. It's called The Acoustic Bible: Secrets of Humanity in the Universe.
Ooh.
And I've essentially done the best I could to take everything from voyagers, from the CDT plates to what I'm able to uncover like in the Bible, and put together a cohesive timeline that a 7-year old can read and understand. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad you did that though, because it's necessary. Especially with social media. Not
Mhm.
that I'm against that. Obviously, we're both on it, but for a person to sit down and read a book, that's work. That shows like, a level of um, wanting to understand something. And then, of course, it kind of like encodes inside of you and activates your DNA if you read something versus watching a video. Videos are good too, don't get me wrong, but nothing like
Right.
a book. So I'm going to get that. I'm going to get it. And congratulations on that. I love that. So yeah, I mean, we talked about a lot today. I'm like, I almost need to have you for a part two.
It's a lot.
It
It's a
is a
lot.
lot.
It's a
Because I
lot
feel
of
like I
stuff.
feel like the audience needs to integrate this for a minute, like over a week or two, and
Yeah, yeah.
like literally, that's what I say after my classes. We just recently had a class last Wednesday, and we were talking about some of this stuff, because of course I couldn't cover half of this stuff in like an hour and a half, but yeah, and I had to say the same thing. Okay, it's time to back off a little bit and let people actually integrate this, but tell us, you pretty much told us a little bit about what it is that you do at the Soul Path Collective, but let's tell my audience where they can find you. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if you want to message me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, I have a link tree. All of my links are there. If you want to be a part of my mailing list, once a month I host like this really long webinar where I talk about like what is DNA activation, what are the kelatonic sciences, and we take typically about 45 minutes to kind of go through everything. I'm trying to cut it down to 30, but as you know, I mean, even just now, like there's just so much to dive into. But I host that once a month. I'm also going to be rolling out a coaching program in March for people who kind of want to work with me on more of like a one-on-one level, who are ready for that, who are feeling called for that. And then the book is coming out at the end of next month or beginning of March. And yeah, that book has parts that are just gonna you're gonna have to read it probably 2 or 3 times to really have the information kind of sit and settle, because a lot of it is going to feel very like familiar, right? Because there's parts of your soul that remember what's being talked about in the book. And I wrote it not for it's kind of funny because in this like light worker community, we refer to people who are kind of like deep in the matrix as like muggles,
Mm-hmm.
non magic folks. But the book was written for star seeds and for indigo children who are beginning to wake up, who are beginning to like have those memories. And it's kind of just there as a guide to kind of give you like a everything that's happened until now, what's really going on, uh, how the church was hijacked, who these beings are. You need to be aware, right? And just raising the level of awareness, right? I'm not here to like prove to you that, reptilians are running your government. If you really, really want to know, I can tell you where to go, but it's going to be some freaky shit that you're going to see. And they might make you disappear. But I'm not it's like not here to prove something to you. I'm just
Right.
here with the information. Take what resonates and leave what doesn't.
Yep. I love it. I love to see that so many of us are coming online and that I can hear us and see us more than the noise, because I know that a lot of people are doing a lot of things on social media, and I have discernment, so I can see, and some of the stuff is for clout. But I know when somebody is like bringing the real deal because I know what's happening, like you know what I'm saying? I know what's happening based on my resources and insight as well.
Mm.
We're walking across the grid lines and getting ready for the new earth. And so it's good to see you out there doing the thing. And my audience knows I will have your information down in the description to follow Yeshua. Apparently, I've been pronouncing Yeshua as as Yeshua for my entire life. I was today years old when I learned how to say that right. So thank you for that too.
Yeah,
And
of course.
yeah, I mean, is there anything else you want to leave my audience with? If not, we'll get up out of here. I just,
No, guys, it
yeah.
was an absolute pleasure being here. I know it's like a lot of information, so just take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Take time to process. And if you want to learn more, follow my channel, subscribe, do what you gotta do.
Y'all know what to do. Hit all the buttons. And thank you so much again. And that is it, y'all. Until the next episode. Peace.